Okay, guys, this is Miss Richards. I'm going over the notes for Friday, March 3rd. Um, and this is when we get into factoring trinomials. So, a lot of what factoring trinomials involves is coming up with two numbers that multiply to something and then add to something else. So, like example 1 here. These are number puzzles. We're asked to find two numbers that multiply to give me 5 and add to give me 6. Well, the only things that multiply to give me 5 would be 1 and 5. And the question is, does 1 plus 5 equal 6? Yes. So our two numbers here would be 1 and 5. Okay. Next one. Two numbers that multiply to give me 10 and add to give me 7. Well, what are the things that multiply to give you 10? 1 times 10, 2 times 5. Which ones add to 7? 2 and 5 multiply to 10 and add to 7. Number 3, what two numbers multiply to give me 12 but add to give me a negative 7? So that means you're going to have two negatives because you want something to multiply to be positive but add to be negative. So if you think about the things that multiply to give me 12, get out my sticky note. So for the number 12, we've got, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Now, we want them to multiply to give us 12, but we want it to add to give us negative 7. So if we make both of these negative, negative 1 times negative 12 gives you 12, but it adds to negative 13. Negative 2 and negative 6, again, they multiply to give you 12, positive 12. They add to give you a negative 8. Negative 3, negative 4, again, multiplies to give you 12. But these actually add to give us negative 7, and that's what we are looking for. Okay, so we said negative 3 and negative 4. So that is a lot of what factoring trinomials involves, is coming up with factors. And there is an easy trick on the calculator I'll show you. So let's look at our next example. We need to find two numbers that multiply to 28 and add to negative 11. Okay, well 28, you need to find the factors of 28. So if you go to your table, clear that out. You want to take whatever number you're trying to multiply to. So in this case is 28. You're going to take that number, take 28, and then divide it by x. And then go to your table. Okay, so the whole numbers here, these are your factors. 1 times 28, 2 times 14, 4 times 7. Okay, and then it starts over at 7 times 4. So if you don't know your factors, use the calculator, or you can do this same thing in Desmos if you use the table function in Desmos. So here we're trying to find two numbers that multiply to 28 but add to negative 11. So both of the numbers have to be negative. So if we think about this, negative 1 and negative 28, does that add to give me negative 11? No. Negative 2 and negative 14. Whoops, I pressed the wrong button. Negative 2 and negative 14. That adds to give me negative 16. That's not negative 11. Okay. And let's keep going. 3 doesn't fit in. What about 4 and 7? Negative 4 times negative 7 would give you a positive 28. Negative 4 plus negative 7 will add to give you a negative 11. Okay. Next one, number 5. Negative 15 has to multiply to give you negative 15 and add to give you 2. Well, 15's not, that's not a hard number to find. So what are your factors of 15? we've got 1 and 15, 3 and 5. You want to find the pair. You know, they multiply to give you negative 15, so one of them has to be negative, okay? And then they add to give you 2. Well, I'm automatically drawn to 3 and 5. We want it to add to give us a 2, so if we make this 3 negative and this positive, 5, negative 3 plus 5 gives me 2, and that's what we want. Okay, so that was negative 3 and a positive 5. So take a minute, pause the video, and I want you to see how many of these you can get, and I'll fill in the rest. But pause the video for like 2 minutes, see how many of these you can fill in on your own. Okay, so you should have paused the video at that point, and then check your work for the rest of these. These are multiplied to this number and add to this number. Okay, so just check your work. If you need to pause the video now, you can, but I need to keep going. So when we are factoring quadratics, remember a quadratic is in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c. This is in standard form. A, b, and c can have any value except a cannot be 0. And this little 2 makes this polynomial a quadratic. If you remember when we classified polynomials, if the highest exponent was a 2, that meant it was a quadratic. Okay, so we are going to learn how to factor quadratic trinomials. And today we're going to focus on the trinomials where the a term is 1. The leading coefficient is going to be 1 for the problems, for all of the problems that we are looking at today. So before we do that, let's go back and let's recall, you know, what it meant to multiply the following. So we did x times x, which gave us x squared, and then x times 3 gave you 3x, 5 times x gave us 5x, and then 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, and then after you do this, you just have to combine the two x terms. So you end up getting x squared plus 8x plus 15. And that was how we multiplied binomials. But today what we're going to do, we are going to be starting here, working our way back to what multiplied to get us this. That is what factoring is. Okay, so flip the page over. Example 1. We have x squared plus 6x plus 8. So remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c. That is a basic quadratic. That's standard form of a quadratic. What you're going to focus on to start out with, you're going to focus on whatever that constant, that c value is. In this case, it's 8. You want to see, okay, what are my factors of 8? List them out. 1 and 8. Everything's positive here, so we're not going to have any negatives. And then you have 2 and 4. So what you want to do today is figure out, my pen's going, the ink's going away, which pair adds to give us the 6. Okay, so you want things that multiply to C and add to give us B. Okay, multiply to C and add to B. So looking at this, 1 plus 8, that's 9. That is not 6. But 2 and 4, again, multiplies to give you 8, but adds to give you 6. Okay, so kind of like when we did difference of 2 squares, you're going to have 2 sets of parentheses. Okay? And same thing, how did you get x squared? Well, you multiplied x times x. All right. Now, again, what two numbers multiplied to give us positive 8 and added to give us positive 6? That's positive 2 and positive 4. So we're going to say x plus 2 times x plus 4. And you just factored your first quadratic trinomial. Okay? Example 2. Ooh, we have some negatives here. So we want two numbers that multiply to give us negative 16, but add to give us negative 6. So what are some numbers that multiply to give us negative 16? Well, if you want to be really specific, we can do a 1 and a negative 16. We can do negative 1 and positive 16. We can do 2 and negative 8. We can do negative 2 and positive 8. And then we can do 4 and negative 4. Okay? Those are all the possible combinations of numbers that will multiply to give us negative 16. But we want the combination that adds to give us this middle term, which is negative 6. So let's go down our list. 1 minus 16, not negative 6. Negative 1 plus 16, not negative 6. 2 minus 8, a positive 2 and a negative 8. When we add those together, guess what? We get a negative 6, and that is exactly what we are looking for. So again, set up two parentheses, two binomials. How did you multiply to get x squared? You multiplied x times x, okay? And then what were our two numbers that multiplied to give us negative 16 and added to give us negative 6? Well, that was positive 2 and that was negative 8. Okay. Let's go on to example 3. So example 3, I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to rewrite it. We've got x squared minus x minus 30. Okay, this one's interesting. So we have a negative 30 is our c. So that's where we're going to look at our factors. So what are the factors of negative 30? You have 1 and negative 30, negative 1 and positive 30, 2 and negative 15, negative 2 and positive 15. You have a 3 and negative 10, negative 3 and positive 10. And then you have 5, negative 6, and negative 5, positive 6. Again, if you don't know these factors, go to the table and hit negative 30 divided by x. This will give you that list. Okay, so we're looking for the ones that add to give us this number. Well, what is that number? What's the coefficient there? Our b value is negative 1. So we want something on this list that adds to give us a negative 1. And when it's a 1, the numbers are going to be close together. So I'm focusing at the bottom of this list. 5 and 6 are really close together. So which combination gives me a negative 1 when I add them? 5 and a negative 6 when I multiply gives me negative 30. When I add, that gives me a negative 1, and that's what we want. Okay, so that's positive 5 and negative 6. How did you get x squared? You multiplied x times x. How did you get a negative 30 and a negative 1? A positive 5 and a negative 6. There will be another video because I am running out of time. We will go over example 4, 5, and 6 on the next video.